Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today. We are continuing our adaptive series, and today's topic is on adaptive fashion. I'm Kelly Berger. I'm the Outreach and Engagement Coordinator at CMD, and I'm here with our outreach team and also Avery Roberts. So for today, we are talking about adaptive fashion. We'll be talking with the latest designers and innovators in the fashion world who are championing inclusivity in the disabled apparel space. So we have a lot to discuss today. We are going to talk with about the creation process, adaptive apparel, mechanical alterations, adaptive undergarments, adaptive footwear, and also hear from a community member about their experiences in the fashion world. As always, just a reminder, this webinar is being recorded, so it will be available after the fact on our YouTube channel. And also, we want to make sure that you are able to get your questions answered at the end for our live Q&A. So feel free to type in your questions in the chat or the Q&A portal. So you have both of those there at the bottom of your screen. So yeah, let's go ahead and dive right into it and meet our speakers. So we have KELLYANNE McGuire from Open Style Lab, MICHELE ERWIN from JCPenney Apparel, LYNN BRANNELLY from Sewn Adaptive, Alexandra Antonescu, also from Sewn Adaptive, HELYA MOHAMMADIAN from Slick Chicks, Joseph DIFRANCISCO from Friendly Shoes, and Samantha DURÀN, our disabled community member. All right, so we are going to start with KELLYANNE McGuire taking us through the creation process. So go ahead, KELLYANNE.
Hi, thank you. So I'm going to share my screen, and while I'm doing that, I just want to say I'm so grateful to be here and so excited about this panel because a lot of the names that are on the panel are organizations or people that we've highlighted in our work. So this is really exciting. So I'm here from Open Style Lab, and I'm going to talk about making and the creative process. So my name is KELLYANNE. I'm our workshop director. You might also know me from Instagram as Modern Marian. And I wanted to highlight this just because, as you can see, I wear leg braces. I've worn leg braces for over 20 years. And so this really informs my experience of clothing and accessible style. And it's a thing that's personal to me and my lived reality. And then I'm excited to be working with Open Style Lab to really bring this topic to the larger audience. And you all are here because you care about this too. So this is really exciting. So who are we? Open Style Lab is a 501c3 nonprofit. We've been around for almost a decade, and we are disability-led. So many of our members have disabilities, or the people on our team. And our mission is really to make style accessible to people of all abilities. And we do this through a variety of means. But first, let's just talk about why is this important? Many of you probably know why this is important, but here's some things from the literature. So enclothed cognition is really feeling confident and comfortable in what we're wearing. The clothes we wear have power not only over others, but also over ourselves. So I'm sure many of us have had this experience where when you find something that really fits and sings, you feel really good about yourself. And when you're really challenged and struggling to find clothing, it can really take a toll on your self-esteem and how you show up in spaces and how you feel confident or not. And so another quote we have here is, not only are we what we wear, but we become what we wear. So clothing is really a way that we express our identity. It's a way that we can speak about ourselves non-verbally. It's a way to show the world kind of who we are and our personalities. So clothing is really powerful, and it's imbued with a lot of power, but it's something that I think a lot of people take for granted because they can just go into a store and buy something off the rack. And as people with disabilities, we know that this is not always an option for us. So these things affect us in a bigger way. They affect everyone, but they affect us in a bigger way. So clothing affects social participation. We know this. 53% of people said that they declined to participate in at least one occasion due to a lack of proper clothing. And 36% said it was regular occurrence. So finding clothing to wear really affects how we move about the world. For me, shoes are really a challenge and an issue, but clothing more broadly is really something that we take for granted, but really does affect us on a lot of levels. So what do you think are some challenges when it comes to dress and disability? I'd love to know if you want to put some answers in the chat for your own personal experiences. What are some challenges that you face? And I want you to start thinking about thinking about it in a literal way, like what are your challenges? And I'm going to move on for the purposes of time, but if you put your answers in the chat, we can kind of have some fodder and we'll come back to it during the Q&A. So some of the common challenges that we see are dexterity, sensory issues or challenges, co-dressing. So whether we have help, how that help affects us. Temperature regulation is a really big thing affecting people with neurological situations or spinal cord injury or hormonal challenges. Getting pants on and off. Thank you, Cindy, for putting something in the chat. Yeah, so these things can affect us with a specific garment, or they can affect us based on our type of disability, or our disabilities can fluctuate, and so the challenges change over time. But really the challenges of dressing and clothing and accessibility come in a myriad of forms. So they're coming from different directions for every individual. There we go. Okay, so this is a broad topic, right? We all have different challenges. We're all faced with different needs. How might we approach design in an inclusive way? Open Style Lab does this through a variety of different methods. We focus on research and development, we focus on consulting, we raise awareness, and we do this through education. So we are not a fashion brand. We are not designing clothing for the mass market or for mass production. We really have this multi-pronged approach, and it's really about engaging the disability community and raising awareness to be thought leaders in the space of adaptive and accessible design. So one of the things that we have created, which is really exciting, is a hackability toolkit. So this came out of our summer program that we were doing every summer until COVID, and then it's taking some different turns since then. But this is a toolkit that was designed, co-designed with participants with disabilities, and it features a variety of different tools that you can see here that are made accessible to really increase the ability for people with disabilities to hack or make or change their clothing. So we have tools. You can see we have things that people with dexterity issues would find easier to use. So larger things that make grip easier, or this rotary cutter here that is a handle, so it's like easier to use. We have templates for pockets. So we all know that pockets are necessary. So adding pockets to things. So the toolkit really provides the tools, and then the possibilities are endless. Here are some things that you can do with it too. So adding straps to your clothing to get it on easier if you have trouble like reaching around. There are these loop, like hook and loop situations. So this is a person who's seated in a wheelchair and their skirt was often flying up. So having, adding loops onto skirts, or sometimes you'll see like weights added onto skirts to keep them down. These are all ways that we can think about hacking or making our clothing to make it function for us. And the Hackability Toolkit provides some of those tools. Another thing that's cool is these laser cut stencils. So we have these designs with different body types and the seated position. And so this is a way that we can expand the creation process with different body types. Another way that we do this is through collaboration. So here are some brands and organizations that we've collaborated with in the past in terms of, again, making or also education. So we can do this through workshops. A big collaboration you might have heard of is with Genentech and the spinal muscular atrophy community at New York Fashion Week last year. So this was a really cool collaboration. It was written up in Vogue. It was written up in hundreds of media outlets around the world, and was really a big deal because it was the first exclusively disability-led runway show at Fashion Week, New York Fashion Week. We also do workshops. So this is a list of recent workshops that we've done. We recently hosted our first book club with Emily Ladow, who you might have heard of. So education and community building is really a core of what we do. And so we bring people together to talk about their challenges with style, with a goal towards identifying needs, connecting people, and finding solutions. We also do original research. So we produce a journal on different topics. And some of the brands that are here today have been featured in our journals. And so we do this through looking at the literature, and then also interviewing people and doing surveys to really get a broad idea of the disability experience. So here's some pages from our shoe journal that we did recently, and you can see we're very data forward. We really want the lived reality and the lived experience to help find solutions. So shoes are kind of our current thing that we're focusing on. Like I said, shoes for me are a big challenge. I know for a lot of people within the disability community, this is a challenge. So we're doing a lot of research right now on shoes, and this is going towards a 2-day workshop that we're going to have in New York City in September, where we're bringing together people with disabilities with challenges with footwear and designers to really ideate and co-design around what the future of accessible shoes could look like. So this summer we did an internal team building exercise where we had a professor who teaches about making shoes come and show us all this process. We have presented at conferences this summer about accessible footwear. And one of the things that we're really doing is looking at the last, which is the kind of form you can see on the bottom left here, is a traditional last. That's the form that is used to make footwear, but many people's feet do not look like shoes. And it's especially fun doing this work now in light of the Barbie movie and all of the rhetoric around Barbie feet. But you can see on the bottom center here, we had custom lasts made with one of our team members' foot that has a disability, and she wears an AFO. And so you can see the disparity between the custom lasts and the traditional standard lasts. And if that's the foundation for footwear, you can see how this can be problematic. So we're doing a lot of research and work around how you design shoes with custom lasts, how you make footwear accessible to meet the needs of the variety, the wide range of feet that we all have. So shoes are really what we're working on this summer. Like I said, we're doing this workshop in September. And so we're really excited to see what comes of that in terms of community engagement and also thinking about shoes and making them accessible. Oh, right. So this is, will this work? Well, so basically the process of this last was that she had her foot scanned and then the last was 3D printed. So it's kind of cool to think about that process. So that's it. So Open Style Lab, this is our website and our Instagram. We're really doing a lot of different things in a lot of different areas. So please check us out if you're at all interested. We always have opportunities for community engagement, whether that's paid survey opportunities or research opportunities, or I host our workshop series. And so I'm always looking for people who want to talk about what they're doing. So you can find me through Open Style Lab here, or give me a follow on Instagram and you can see what I'm up to talking about accessible style. So thank you all. I'm looking forward to your questions in the chat later, and I'm excited to be a part of this. So thank you.
Thanks so much, KELLYANNE. Thank you. Next, we will talk with Michelle, and she's going to give us a rundown on adaptive apparel.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you for inviting JCPenney's and myself to be here to let everybody know, what we're doing in this space for adaptive apparel. So I am a sourcing business manager at JCPenney's, and basically what I do is negotiate the costs. And our designer, unfortunately, could not be here today, so you have me. But I am a parent of a child who has a disability, specifically spinal muscular atrophy. And so adaptive apparel and accessibility is very something that I'm really passionate about. In addition to my sourcing business manager role, I also am on the adaptive apparel committee, as well as for the last 3 years, I was the chair and co-chair for what we call the Abilities BRT, where we were focused on all things access, including employment for people with disabilities. So JCPenney's, I would say, is relatively new to the adaptive apparel market. In 2019, JCPenney's started research and development for adaptive apparel. And we first launched our first line, which was called Thereabouts, which was for children in 2021. And we did not do this blindly. We definitely interviewed the community. We brought in consultants such as Patty and Ricky before we launched right into adaptive apparel. We wanted to make sure that we got it right. And so since 2021, we've been able to launch adaptive apparel into all of JCPenney's private brands. And so we have the full list here. As you can see, it's a pretty broad spectrum. And as of 2024, we are still going to be launching additional lines that will include adaptive apparel. And so what this means for JCPenney's is that, if there is a line or an item rather, say in Arizona Juniors, right? You can also find it on our .com website with adaptive features. And so, we make sure that the features we provide are for dexterity, seated, mobility, and sensory. And so for dexterity, we want to make sure that if you have trouble buttoning your shirt, we offer options such as hook and loop, or what other people know as, say, Velcro, or seated, where your rise is higher in the back, or we don't offer pockets on those seats. So if you are seated in a wheelchair, you don't have that uncomfortable extra fabric, as well as mobility. So providing, different solutions for if you are even in just a cast. So if your disability is temporary, or if you're using braces, you have other options there, as well as sensory. And that's everything from being tagless to providing covering of seams. And so this is a full list of all the adaptive features that JCPenney's offers in a wide array of our assortments. And so what I really thought was really great, they even have magnetic zippers. And so they help you, it locks in and it helps you zip up, say that item. So I think we're always learning about what we can do to make apparel easier for the consumer. And so when you go to our website, we want to make sure that the shopping experience is, easy for everyone. And so, when you hover over the garment on our website, now that large adaptive icon that you see there, you'll now know that product is adaptive, and the other icons below it will also identify what is specifically adaptive about that product. We are getting better about including, inclusive models, so you can specifically see exactly how that garment is adaptive, as well as close-up images of, say, the hook and loops or other special opening and closures of those garments. And so I think, just in short, we're really proud to be in this space, and we're working with a lot of people actually who are on this panel, and check out our adaptive products. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't realize we had another image, but these are close-up images of some of the items that we have and what the features are that make them adaptive. So this is specific to our children's lines, but we also do have, so for example, like the feeding tube ports for children.
All right. Thanks so much, Michelle.
Thank you.
All right. Up next, we are going to talk with Lynn and Alexander on mechanical alterations.
Hey, my name is Alexander ANDRONESCU. Thank you so much for having us. I am a professional tailor. I used to work in garment manufacturing for many years, fashion design. I have a background in that as well. And so I come from a background of very technical fashion creation, with a lot of experience in creating clothes at a mass market standpoint, but with the tailoring quality. So I brought that into Sewn Adaptive, and this is my business partner, Lynn.
Hi, I'm Lynn Brannelly, and I have been a professional union costume designer for film and television for the last 30 years. And Alex and I came together doing the Runway of Dreams runway show over a year ago here in Los Angeles. And when we came together and did that runway show is where we decided to strictly do adaptive sewing. And so we created Sewn Adaptive, and we opened the first alterations and tailoring shop here in Pasadena, California, specifically for doing the adaptive needs for the disabled community.
Yeah, so Sewn Adaptive is in person and online. It's a service that you can utilize via our websites. You make Zoom appointments where we can talk to you about your different needs, and we can take in your shipped alterations. A lot of our customers who are consistent with us will purchase items online, have them shipped to us, and using their measurements or their specific adaptive needs, we'll change the garment for them and ship it to them. That's a lot of the work that we do. We also have a fully accessible space here in Pasadena that we opened about a year ago. And we're super, we're just super glad to have people come by and be able to have a space of their own that they can utilize for tailoring and alterations unlike ever before. Our place is fully accessible, and like our changing room has a changing table in it for a lot of people who need assistance in that co-dressing. And we just have we have this resource now to be able to make clothing more accessible to everybody and more inclusive in general. There's a lot of times that we felt like the clothing that was desired by the community was not necessarily something that was inherently adaptive. And you should be able to choose what garment that you would like to have for you, just anywhere. And so we decided that the best way to do that would be to offer those alterations on any existing garment, which really truly makes every garment really inclusive.
Mhm. One of the things that we wanted to do after having that first experience being the tailoring team for Runway of Dreams was we wanted to be able to give all options to any community to have the kind of fashion that they want, not necessarily be dictated by the brands, their choices. So to say, a brand will create an adaptive portion of their collections, and then the consumer gets, their two choices. With having our service, any brand can allow their customer base to choose any of their collection, and we do the adaptive to make them, accessible.
I think that so much that's a part of that is being able to work with brands closely and offer those solutions, those adaptive solutions. That's one of the key points that we want to drive home with our consumers and people who are customers with us, is that you can buy anything. You can buy anything from anywhere, and as long as that's sizing similar, we can totally alter that. And we do alterations for proportion, we do alterations for accessibility, for sensory, anything that we can do that would really make something more accessible for somebody. Things like adding invisible zippers to the inseams of jeans so that you can wear jeans with your AFOs, access to prosthetics or medical devices. We do things for accessibility like magnetic zippers, magnetic closures, hook and loop closures, things that would just make things easier to be dressed in, whether that's a co-dressing situation or that's for your own needs. So there's kind of a lot of variety there in terms of objective alterations, as we call it, things that don't necessarily need to be changed in terms of the fashion design aspect of the garment. So the outside appearance of the garment stays exactly the same, but we also have alterations that we do around the ideas of proportion. So while we do cut and alter the garment, usually in a hemming way or changing the way things are seen on the garment, we aren't really altering the overall image of it. Some of that is like high-low alterations for wheelchair users, so that the bunching on your shirt when you're seated, if you're non-ambulatory, it doesn't really bunch up there. So we will shorten it, but shorten it to a point where it's not close to a button, so it doesn't look like it's been shortened. We have certain tiers of where we shorten things to make sure that it stays with that image. So it's sort of an illusion. And it works really well to showcase that level of alteration. I also really like the work that we do around work with little people, because that type of finding clothes for people with dwarfism can be really tricky. There's proportions there, there's different types of dwarfism. We have so many different clients. I have a background in tailoring, so I made a bunch of suits for our clients who are little people, and that's been a great experience because that just doesn't often exist, and we've been able to do that in an affordable way and an accessible way here at our place in Pasadena. So yeah, I mean, we've even worked with a lot of people who are influential in this in the disability community, like Chelsea.
Right. We just did so Rolette's experience just happened last month, and Chelsea Hill, who's the founder of Rolettes. We did actually 4 custom garments for her looks for the event. And it was just a great experience, both of us being designers, to get to really hone in on the seated silhouette, to get to make the adjustments and proportions to exactly what she was looking for. And then to be able to now going forward, kind of have that blueprint for that silhouette for anything that she would like, and anybody else for that matter. So
yeah, it's a lot of research and development, and we really like that about what we do, is that we're able to experiment with how fitting can be, how it can be better, what type of alterations should be done, or how we can work with brands like zipper manufacturers. Right now, we're in talks with multiple zipper manufacturers trying to create a little bit more of a discrete magnetic zipper, making that more accessible and more prevalent in clothing, because we think that, that's something that could just be so useful in the manufacturing process. And having a background in manufacturing, it's so easy to implement that on a larger scale, which would then make so much more clothing accessible to the general population. So we're working on all these different fronts right now to try to make clothing more accessible, more prevalent in all types of different fields. So, I mean, as far as what we think Sewn Adaptive may go next, is definitely in one of my hopes for it would be to be working more directly with clothing brands and retailers to be sort of a middleman between your product and your consumer, to be able to offer that alteration directly through the website, so that this third step doesn't necessarily need to be any more complicated. It can be just this that your need is stated based on the garment, and those alterations can be made, which makes every product on the website accessible to everybody.
Yeah, you could consider us to be kind of like the added value service within any brand. One of the things that we didn't really cover yet, our physical space here, the front half of the space, well, actually the entire space is accessible. We designed the front half of the space where we're sitting right now, where our fitting room, every aspect of the design of this room was done with needing to be accessible. So like Alex said, our fitting room is gigantic. Wheelchair user can do a full 360 in it. The closures for it are magnetic. So for people with dexterity issues, that's not a challenge, but we created this space so that you could have the one-on-one, have all of your needs addressed. It's a very frank conversation to be able to make sure that you walk away with whether you brought in your ready to wear and had us adapt it, or we're doing something custom, that you get the look that you want, that you end up wearing the clothes that you like, versus being told, by society as these are the choices you get. The other side of our space is actually like a full factory space. Alex used to be in mass production and owned his own factory space here in Los Angeles. So we have the capability with regards to brands to do any kind of mass alterations, so that a brand can offer the added value service of Sewn Adaptive. So if the existing silhouette is not yet adaptive, the consumer can make the choice. Oh, they want zippers added into the inseams, or oh, they want the buttons switched out to magnets, and they can request our added value service, and we do that, which takes a brand that isn't in the adaptive space and brings them into it.
Yeah, so we're definitely ambitious with what we're trying to do as far as branching out in the adaptive realm, and we're just so excited to be able to be here and talk more about what we do and make it a little bit more prevalent for the community, showing people that there's so much available there because we have the factory. I made so many clothes out of the last factory. When we have clothing that comes in and people are like, I don't know if you can do this, I absolutely can, because I made those clothes from scratch before. So when we make those alterations, we're using the same equipment that was used to make the clothing. So it comes out exactly the same. Nothing looks you know, pardon my French, but homemade.
Right.
And so it's sort of everything is made at a very high quality standard. All the equipment is high quality. So then the product is just as high quality. We want our customers to walk away feeling as confident and independent as they possibly can. And we've found a lot of success operating the way that we operate. That's why we've made our space an appointment-based one, because we try to give our customers the most amount of attention as possible. Lynn and I both come out to try to talk to them, to talk about needs, which helps in research and development, helps them get to know us better, helps us serve them. But it also, we could take that information and really just try to make a difference. When we talk to other brands, when we talk to manufacturers of trims and notions that we then use in the adaptive process. So we're just, we're really trying to hit all angles here from our different backgrounds together to pull it all in. We're so excited to have had the opportunity to be here. So thank you so much for letting us share.
Great. Thanks so much, Lynn and Alexander, for going more in depth about your awesome service that you provide. Appreciate it. Now we're going to talk with HELYA about adaptive undergarments.
I always tell my kids there's so much fun on the other side of fear. What's the worst that could happen? I end up in a wheelchair? The biggest gift for me of disability is the disabled community. There's so many disabled people who need clothes that fit differently. Slick Chicks is emblematic of the idea of inclusive design. These clothes are not only for disabled people. They fit lots of different types of bodies.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy and grateful to be here. My name is HELYA MOHAMMADIAN, and I am the founder of Slick Chicks. So Slick Chicks are they're adaptive clothing. Sorry, I'm going to go back. Slick Chicks are adaptive clothing and undergarments that are designed for people with various disabilities, limited mobility, people with chronic illness, the aging population, which is essentially everyone. I wanted to start with that video because we did our first marketing campaign with Jamie Perry, who you saw. She is an adaptive athlete. She's a mom. She's a creative. She's a wife. And we really wanted to create a campaign that just told the story of someone who is just going about their day, regardless of, ability, regardless of, any of the challenges they're going through in their life, like it was any other day. So it was our first marketing campaign. It was really exciting for us to do and just to share her story, because really that is what our company is about. And that's how the company started. I created Slick Chicks from a personal experience. So it's very deeply personal to me. And so I started the company back in 2013 into 2014. I had an experience with my sister who was undergoing, a routine C-section. And she had a pretty bad post-op recovery, which left her feeling really just debilitated in bed. A month of just recovering. Her husband had to help her. My family had to help her. And at that point, I had been in the fashion industry. I was working for, the who's who of fashion designers and working at Bergdorf's. And, I was really in a place in my life that, I didn't feel like I was really creating much impact. And the experience with my sister and seeing her struggle to even just bend over and change really got me thinking about products that were on the market. And so I started literally Googling products out there that were accessible. And I was very astonished to see that the market was very bland. It was very sterile. It was very medical. And I didn't see much in terms of, accessible undergarments. And so that is when I really just kind of like dove deep into accessible products and design. I wasn't even thinking adaptive. I didn't even know what adaptive was really at that point. This was almost a decade ago. And because I went to FIT, because I'm a designer at heart, I basically decided to create a prototype of underwear for someone who's in a similar situation like my sister at the time. And so the first product that we developed was adaptive underwear, which we later patented in 2017. And it was because of my sister and that experience. But I didn't realize that there was this huge gap, this huge need, until we launched a Kickstarter campaign. And everyone that was pre-ordering this product were people with various disabilities, wheelchair users, people with chronic illnesses. Just, you know, there were so many various use cases, and I just was blown away. And so I really just made it, you know, my goal to learn more about this space as someone who is able-bodied. So I really dug into like the research and development. That is like my sweet spot. I love design. I love fashion. I love trying to find a solution and seeing things come to life. So this was, for me, it was something that just really made me feel like this was my calling, and especially being in fashion for 20 years and not really feeling like I was making much of an impact. So it all started with the underwear, and, you know, we later on, and I'll get to that, we developed more products, but I realized that if I could just take the universal design elements, if I could just understand what it is that, you know, various people with, you know, disabilities were struggling with, and if I could just merge, you know, fashion and function, we could create these timeless pieces, and pieces that made people feel confident and dignified and also independent, that we really could just change fashion. And it's been really incredible to be part of a community that really just embraces diversity and be part of this whole movement that's here to stay. And I always had the you know, the goal of mainstreaming this, because I wanted our products to be accessible, or I aspire to make them accessible to so many people. So we do work with a lot of different closures. The first that, you know, the first product that was patented was our underwear. So we used hook and eye. Later realizing that not everybody can use hook and eye fasteners. Some people have dexterity challenges and mobility, or I'm sorry, fine motor skills, so in their fingers. So we later on started working with Velcro. So we say Velcro because we have a co-branded relationship with Velcro. A lot of people don't realize that they are their own brand. So we do love working with them. We launched adaptive underwear that was leak-proof with the help of our manufacturers. We have a patented leak-proof gusset, and we use Velcro to make it more, you know, more accessible, easier to use. So the underwear is our core products, but we also got a lot of feedback asking for bras. So we started making accessible bras with magnetic zippers and Velcro fasteners. And we, you know, experimented with our loungewear. We did a pilot launch, actually, and we launched that with JCPenney and on our website, and that was really well received. So we love innovation. So we work with a really great manufacturer in Sri Lanka. They created this adaptive COE with us being their first actual startup company that came in, probably it was like 4 years ago. And what really drew me to them was that they employ over 380 people with various disabilities. So for me, that just, you know, we wanted to be, you know, embracing inclusion and diversity, not just like in our products, but like our partnerships and the people that we work with. So I go to Sri Lanka probably once or twice a year, and I get to work with their design team. And, you know, it's just really incredible that, you know, people with various disabilities touch our products, make our products, and they're part of the entire process from beginning to end. So ethical manufacturing is a big part of our story. You know, the manufacturing piece of that is important because, you know, our products are very premium, they're high quality, the fabrics are, I wanted comfort. Comfort is so important for me in fashion. I think it's important for so many people, but we wanted the fabrics to be soft and breathable. And, we wanted to really just create products that were, with these design principles, but the comfort part of it for me was like paramount in that process. And yeah, they were really the best partnership that we could ask for in manufacturing, because I've heard manufacturing nightmare stories. And so I definitely went through that when creating the line. In the last 10 years, I have some incredible stories about manufacturing that I had to go through, but it's been awesome to work with them. And yeah, I mean, we are really excited for what's to come and what's on the horizon. I am currently in, talks with a couple of like really incredible partners. So we'll be announcing partnerships soon, but really just the product development and the things that are, we're currently working on and developing will probably be later this fall into this winter, but we're working on athleisure, which is something that I'm very excited about. The design process is just my favorite piece in running the business. But yeah, there's a lot of incredible partnerships that we have. We just launched on Kohl's and Third Love. So if you get a chance to check us out, we also love feedback. It's a really small company. We respond to all customer inquiries, and I'm a big part of that process. So I love getting feedback on just, the products, what we could do better. We do a lot of pilot launches to test the products. So, the community is a big part of that, and getting that feedback and working directly with, the people that our products are, solving a need for that's a huge part of the whole process and what I love about the company and creating products. But I'm really grateful to be here, and, I'm excited for the Q&A, and hopefully I get to answer some questions for everyone. So thank you again for having me.
All right, thanks, HELYA. Well, very exciting. We are going to kick it over to Joseph, who's going to talk with us about adaptive footwear.
Okay, so my name is Joseph. I'm an occupational therapist. I started Friendly Shoes in response to my many patients that had difficulties putting on shoes. Even starting as a student, you always kind of have something called a clinical instructor. And as you're going and treating patients throughout the lifespan, you'd have these difficulties engaging in activities of daily living. So kind of in the process, you look at your clinical instructor, hey, we need help. Like, what can we do? And there was no solution for footwear. It's the furthest area of your body and requires the most amount of functional skills to actually address. In addition to the challenges actually putting on the shoes, the implications of the footwear, it's super important. I mean, not only does it help you function in the environment through functional transfers, through your ability to ambulate. For those that do ambulate, there's also a huge fashion psychology piece. So it's not just, always how you look, it's how you feel too. A lot of depth there when you look into fashion psychology. I practiced for about 10 years. And in that, we look for the friendly solution. So we're always trying to actively work with customers as we progress. We've progressed into Europe as of last month. So we are scaling. We are with JCPenney. We are with Zappos, and the ability to kind of get the footwear out there, working with the customers and just kind of getting their feedback. Hey, this is great. This isn't. We're a humble company. We're small as we grow. We really want to be authentic. So the wide widths are super important. Looking at the actual circumference of the toe box is important. You want to be wide. You don't want to be too wide. You want to look for some of the feedback we got for removable insoles. One of the challenges we hear a lot are these orthoses. I'm sure you all have heard about them. You have your AFOs, your ankle foot orthoses, your SMOs, your superior malleolar orthoses. You have KAFOs that cross the knee. So you're always kind of, messing around with the variables in your head and trying to have a solution that'll work. There is no one answer. I know KELLYANNE went into her desire to go into footwear and looking at the last, and that's awesome. So keep up the good work. That's something that with these orthoses, looking at circumference measures of the last in certain positions of the foot, looking at the instep, you really have to make these adjustments. In addition to making this functionally relevant or pertinent to the individuals, you really have to make sure you're not putting something that looks like a breadbasket as you're getting wider. So changing the colors and the hues, something I'm not good at all. Completely function, hate to generalize based on my gender, but we do have a team here that helps us with the aesthetic, and adding the proper aesthetic is going to help to make the shoes look good too. I know that someone referenced before the types of zippers. I love that. We use YKK zippers. We've had the most success. I think that adapting them with some type of magnetization is awesome. So everyone that spoke thus far, I mean, this is an awesome group, and you're really trying to learn from each other as you're delving into your specialization. Back in the day when I was practicing occupational therapy, I learned a tremendous amount from the physical therapist. And when I worked in my early intervention, kind of birth to 3 practice, I learned a lot from speech. So learning from them and kind of becoming hybrid helps your own specialization as well. In this particular iteration, we did anti-slip rubber bottoms. We've since moved to like a file on just your generalized athletic leisure, but it does have the slip resistant properties, which was important to us. Here's just another style. We collab with a company called Silverts in Canada, working with our easy shoe access that we have in the back. We are one of 2 companies with Nike, who's absolutely awesome, and we've been in contact with. We are one of 2 with them with the zipper and back technologies, and we thought it was important to have this because you're always kind of looking at the individual, and when they're engaging in the shoe donning task, you're looking at their position as they're doing it. So this was important. We've since moved on to a front easy access technology as well, and we're always, the micro details, it's really important, and that's why we want to be a brand that does speak with our community. This is great. We can improve on this. We're humble. All right, so that is version 1. Quite frankly, I look at it, I see a million different things that are incorrect with this particular shoe, but we had to start somewhere, and it was just me and another friend of mine working on this. We tried to put that back loop there for a dressing stick, right? An accessory that commonly ends up in the back of your closet after the occupational therapist works on the dressing task with you. A lot of the research with these long-handled reachers and different adaptive equipment that people use in therapy as they're trying to acquire or reacquire the task just doesn't end up getting used, and that's one of the catalysts for us pursuing this endeavor. So this, I thought we'd add, this is like, right, we're all having different perspectives, and this is called our functional independence measure. So if you have an individual that's a maximum assist, meaning they require 90% or more assistance, and I know these numbers are kind of how to objectify, it's a little subjective, but if you could get the child, if you get the individual to a modified independence, we've seen a lot where an individual was dependent with shoe donning, and then we could get them to modified independence just through training. It's important, and not just how you look, how you feel, as I said before. And it's kind of footwear is the only article of clothing that like you could wear every day without someone looking at you funny. It's okay to wear in subsequent days, and the functional implications are absolutely huge. I've seen more people break down into tears working with families, with moms, and some of the seniors that we're working with. It's just, you couldn't put on your shoes for whatever reason, and once the shoe actually gets onto your foot, it functionally wasn't able to accommodate your specific needs. A lot of times you get age-related decline or deformation. So having this width, having this ease, having the file on light outsoles with the anti-slip, we're just always trying to progress. All right, these are some of our gals. We've had an amazing amount of support in our community. it's been awesome. We really don't even market much, and we are scaling all throughout the world. First year was super hard, kind of penetrating the market. We didn't have the money to market because we had to pay for the actual product. But like between all of the professionals in this industry, and as we're evolving, you're seeing things change over time, and it's been absolutely amazing. We were able to get accepted into a Techstar accelerator program. So JP Morgan has actually invested in our company, and we just don't want to let them down. We don't want to let our people down that are depending on us. So we're just trying to authentically continue to help. And as these more and more functional challenges, we get more and more feedback. We're constantly making changes in our iterations of footwear. We're going into some wider opportunities. We're working with the VA as well, which is awesome. Like, your product's able to help disabled individuals that served your country. So it's great. We've had a great response from individuals with amputations. We are piloting our singles program. So we're enabling individuals to order different size shoes, which is a logistical nightmare, truthfully, but it's a labor of love. We're happy to do it. The only guarantee that we have, as far as we do make mistakes, and we're honest with it, and we address the mistakes as soon as we can. It's important to us. This slide is not pertinent. This is another iteration of shoes that we started. We kind of co-manufacture. We started it in Novo Hamburgo, which is South Brazil. We've since moved to Fujian, China. Everything's ethically assessed. We have to get proper paperwork and everything, especially for our larger retail partners. But we did launch Zolando in Europe. So just kind of getting feedback there, and yeah, just trying to get help as many people as we can. Another iteration, we're going into some laceless shoes. We put the little nub at the end to help individuals that might have fine motor impairment. There are removable insoles on this. One of the problems with the laceless is you lose the ability to change tension, right? And for e-commerce, you're sending it out like it either fits or it doesn't. So the aesthetic, fantastic on these. My functional OT brain is, I'm always looking for the ability to adjust, and this will minimize friction. There's a lot of benefits you could get from having, the shoe fit right. And, all of us with our right versus left foot, if you were to measure actual pressure mapping or measure millimeters on the foot, everything's different. It's the way it is. We've since moved to a toggle technology too that we're offering for the little kiddos that we call the Quest, and they're doing really well. We're getting good feedback, and we got some other tricks up our sleeve upcoming. All right, this is our little mascot. We spent a whole bunch of cash on marketing in the beginning. Quite frankly, it's we didn't use as much as we should have probably, but we called this the I Can 2 collection. And the I Can 2 collection, we're looking for the first ever authentic sensory friendly shoe. So we moved extraneous stitching inside the shoe. We made it tagless, so we did a stamp instead of actually having the tag. We all kind of talk about sensory, but being able to see it firsthand for these little kiddos that have these tactile defensiveness, it's an amazing thing. I remember being a student and with my clinical instructor, and we took a child out with long grass, and we had the child go barefoot, and I remember that the child crying just in response, because that information coming into his body through his tactile system is just overwhelming. It's the same thing if I was to be talking to you now, I have sweatpants on, by the way, because you can only see my upper half. But if I had shoes on and there's a rock in your shoe and you're talking to someone about something really important, you're thinking they could feel this rock in my shoe. And it just kind of impacts your ability to process other information. And it's big and you can't see it. And that's one of the problems. You see a lot of the socks. You see a lot of socks that are hindering child's ability to properly engage in their environment, because there's threads in the socks. And I have seen some sensory friendly socks, and the jury's still out on that. I haven't been sold on it. I think there are more iterations that could get better. I've put them on myself, and I guess I was a bit of a sensory kid, how it ended up influencing me to follow occupational therapy, and I could feel it. So some work for all of us to do in that regard. All right, the beautiful box. And we spent way too much on this box and ended up being really heavy and making shipping cost even more. So we've learned a lot and kind of changing to more eco-friendly with boxes and the actual shipment stuff. All right, this is our boy, Dave. Dave, he works for Soles for Souls. So we did have some extra footwear with our first iteration. So we established a relationship with Soles for Souls. So Dave kind of handles his ability to donate these shoes at, I don't remember how many locations, 5 to 10 locations throughout the world. And we did have a chance to donate to an Israel company as well for providing shoes for refugees that have left the conflict in Eastern Europe. So grateful to be able to do it. It really is an awesome thing. I thank you all for the opportunity to speak. Let me know if you have any questions. I've heard footwear time and time again in this presentation, and it's huge. It's super important. Getting the big brands and to help us out to kind of, because footwear is not cheap. You just have to have the actual purchase orders, and then there are MOQs and all these variables that moving forward with these new developments, these things you want to try to accommodate the needs of other individuals. You have these minimums, and you just have to, you're going to need some support. So having the larger companies, which they are seemingly doing over the past 5 years, we've watched it. It's just been a great thing to watch and see that stuff grow. Again, my name is Joseph, occupational therapist, founder of Friendly Shoes. Joseph at friendlyshoes.com. I put my email on the chat. So if y'all have any questions, email me anytime. The more information, the more collab we have, the more perspective or lenses that we're looking at this adaptive community with, the better. So keep up the good work. I'm happy to see what you all have in store for the future.
Great. Thanks so much, Joseph. All right. Last but not least, we're going to talk with Samantha, and she's going to give us her community member experience on being a fashion influencer. Go ahead, Samantha.
Hi, my name is Samantha J. DURÀN, otherwise known as a disabled icon on social media. And I am a disabled fashion influencer. And I was born with an extremely rare bone disease called Maffucci syndrome. And it has affected my relationship with fashion in a variety of ways. I've had 19 surgeries and counting since the age of 6. And, I had a shorter leg, so I've had to wear shoe lifts. And growing up, there weren't a lot of adaptive, I don't even remember any adaptive clothing other than, the adaptive shoe lifts. And there weren't many options when it came to choosing the shoes that are compatible with the shoe lifts. And, having to get leg lengthening surgeries with the external fixators. I wasn't able to wear so many things with bottoms, including undergarments. My mom, like a lot of these things a lot of adaptive clothing didn't exist back then, like in the 2000s. So my mom would have to cut the underwear and put just adapt it herself before we even knew what that terminology was. And I was pretty limited in terms of pants, shorts, any kind of bottoms at all. And as I've grown, I've also started to use a wheelchair. So obviously being seated throughout the day really impacts the way your clothes drapes over your body and how it can catch in your wheelchair in the wheels and stuff. So as a fashion lover, it can be a challenge to express myself with fashion when there's so many barriers to fashion as a disabled person, and I'm just one disability out of countless. So it's so important for brands to start including disabled models in a variety of ways, especially when it comes to online shopping. As someone who shops online a lot for logistical purposes, it can be a little difficult to find to really know how clothing fits on my body, because a lot of these models tend to be standing, and as a wheelchair user, you know, I kind of have to like guess how the clothing will, like, you know, drape on my body and stuff. So it makes me really happy to hear that so many brands in this call today, including JCPenney, are taking this initiative in prioritizing adaptive fashion and including disabled models in their brands. And, you know, unfortunately, as a young disabled person, I do get a lot of backhanded compliments like, wow, you're so beautiful and you're an inspiration, to which I, you know, being disabled and being a wheelchair user doesn't make me inspiring in the absence of ableism and so many barriers that come with being a disabled person. I think I'm beautiful because of how resilient I am, despite everything. But that doesn't mean that, you know, that I'm not, you know, just like anyone else. I'm still a person despite having a disability, and I still have a lot of hobbies and interests, including fashion. So, yeah. You know, and being disabled, especially as a wheelchair user, like being visibly disabled, I do tend to get a lot of stares, and I figured that if I'm going to get stares for being disabled, I might as well give them something to look at, something iconic to look at, which is why I put such an emphasis on my maximalist fashion, and especially at the intersection of how I make it work as a wheelchair user in a world that's not really prioritizing adaptive fashion. So yeah. I definitely think that you know, inclusivity of the disabled community has a long way to go with fashion, especially, but just in every single way. And, you know, it just makes me so happy to be on this phone call today with so many companies and brands and individuals that, you know, disabled or not, they have a special interest in pushing, you know, this inclusion of disabled people and making it the norm. And, you know, they're not here today, but, you know, one of my, I recently started, I recently bought this, this like adaptive, like wheelchair, like accessory from Fora. Basically they, this is like a little purse, and there's like a little like, I don't know if you can see that. Yeah. So this attaches onto this thing on my wheelchair, like this little attachment system on my wheelchair, and it's interchangeable with like you know, like a water bottle and other things. And it's really helpful because obviously as a wheelchair user, my hands need to be unoccupied to propel myself. Obviously as a manual wheelchair user, that's like really important. And I love that, you know, this company Fora can put together, you know, like really cute, you know, wheelchair accessories that are not just functional, but also like fashionable And that's something that a lot of people, you know, a lot of like, at least like wheelchair and like mobility aid companies tend to overlook. I think, you know, just because I have to use a mobility aid, it doesn't mean it has to be bland. I could definitely use that to express myself and decorate my wheelchair as an extension of my body, which is actually, speaking of, another thing I really love when it comes to like accessibility and fashion, and more specifically as a wheelchair user. There's another brand I love so much that allows me to express my individuality and my, you know, creativity and personality. They're called Izzy Wheels, and they create these like wheel covers for wheelchairs, and they have like the cutest designs ever. I love them so much. So yeah, that's something I didn't think I heard throughout this call today. Like mobility aids, like fashionable mobility aids in that sense. As a fashion influencer who's disabled, you know, there aren't, I think it's like a very niche thing. There are tons of fashion influencers out there. Not many of them have disabilities, and, you know, with such a lack of inclusivity, it can be difficult to find brands that are willing to partner with disabled creators or disabled influencers, because there's this misconception that we are a small percent of the population when we're not. So yeah. And when it comes to working on any new or exciting projects, you can, you know, stay tuned and follow me on my socials. My username is @disabled_icon. And that's it. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Samantha, for giving us your perspective. All right, now we're going to move to our official Q&A. So we do have some questions already in the chat. We see we'll definitely address those. And if you have any additional ones, feel free to add those in. So if our speakers can go ahead and come back on video and audio, and we'll get the official Q&A started here.
Michelle, I guess this would be for you. Something that one of our community members finds is that a lot of adaptive clothing is more expensive than other clothes. Is that the case with the products at JCPenney Apparel?
So there is a different retail on, say, the adaptive apparel than you would find on, say, you know, Missy apparel, but it does cost typically for a retailer almost 50% more to produce, you know, apparel that is adaptive, and it's because it's typically a smaller run, and because there's special trims and things like that that go into it. And so, you know, we do understand that we need to make sure that it is affordable for the community, but we do try to make sure that the pricing out there is affordable for the community.
Great. Alex and Lynn, one of our community members, says that Sewn Adaptive sounds so cool. Once you develop a custom pattern that works, do you provide it to the customer to make things on their own?
So we don't, unless they ask. We haven't had any customers who asked, and you know, it's finding people in general who sew is pretty rare these days. So people come to us and they want custom clothing made, generally because they are not sewing themselves. However, we do use the research that we get from making clothes, you know, primarily for stature, people with dwarfism, seated pants, high lows for wheelchair users. We take all of that and we are contracted with Simplicity, the home sewing pattern brand. And so we are now working with them to create new styles. Our contract started with them just recently, so our designs will start coming out in the spring. I think that I can speak for everybody here. When you've seen home sewing pattern, when you've seen this adaptive adaptive category, it's been very medical looking, and primarily angled towards age as being the disability targeted, which is not necessarily accurate or appropriate. Right. So when we approached them, which they were more than happy to have us on the team there, we have started to create garments that are stylish and have those features that when you go to the store and you buy those simplicity patterns. I have a background in manufacturing patterns, so we're going to be making the patterns here that then get sent to Simplicity and then mass produced there, so that those patterns are really properly fitted. I think the next ones we have coming out are a high-low shirt for wheelchair users, seated pants, so exactly how to how that shape comes together, and that's a little bit of a unique shape just looking at the pieces. So we have we write our own instructions and videos on how to do that. So you can expect some actually very stylish pieces to be coming out there. So people who do sew at home are able to make those clothes, whether or not those clothes were made, or those patterns were originally made for them, but for somebody with a similar situation, and we could actually make that totally accessible. So to answer your question very directly, while our customers don't generally ask for their patterns, we're making those patterns accessible for everybody.
This is so exciting because this comes up a lot in the conversations with our community, because we do have people who sew. This is so exciting.
Yeah, we will. Yeah. Sewn Adaptive is going to be a licensee for the Big Five pattern company.
That's awesome.
The adaptive space. Yeah. Thank you.
Great. I guess this would be a question for Joseph or KELLYANNE. One of our community members' problems with shoes is that they're too heavy. With shoes on, her son John can no longer move his legs. I don't know if you could talk on that.
Yeah, sure. I could talk on that. We, with our initial iteration of shoes, we did rubber bottoms. Since we moved to Phylon, our shoes are under 8 ounces, depending on the size. So extremely lightweight, to the point where some of the customers will get the footwear in the box and wonder if there's anything in it. So I think it's pretty much as light as we could go. The other beauty of the Phylon, it has rubber pods, so it does have that slip resistance that could help for positioning for an individual that is prolonged sitting, and it's super durable for the individual that might have a drag pattern, toe drag or heel drag. We are working on a program for the drag as well, so it's on our radar. We're going to continue to kind of have that in the friendly DNA, to have that lightweight feature. We all like lighter, so some of the feedback we've gotten.
Great. HELYA, I guess this would be a question for you. One of our community members is still interested in getting pants or underpants on and off, as she's completely non-ambulatory. She does not dress independently and relies on assistant to help her. She likes the idea of Velcro closures on the side, but the hardest part is still getting the garment under her buttocks, while she's still sitting. And she's a very small person. So she was just wondering if you had any suggestions.
Thank you, and thanks for the question. A lot of the individuals that we've spoken to that are in similar situations have just basically shared their experience of how they've put on some of our products and they've laid them flat on like a bed, and then they've seated, got into the seated position there, and then we're able to put on our products. And we started to work on doing designing the closures so they're like closer to the front and not so much on the side, so it makes it a little bit more accessible and easier to just close them a little bit closer to the belly button, as opposed to like directly on the side. So we're still creating and iterating those products just to make it a little bit more accessible, but that's kind of the experience that we're hearing. from people in our community directly that have worn our products and said that makes it a little bit easier for them to get dressed. So.
All right, perfect.
May I chime in here? With
Yeah.
the technologies, the fantastic technologies that HELYA is creating, if there could be some type of interface with an occupational therapist, and you have this particular task training with the actual garment, and there's all these new technologies coming out, especially with the orthoses, right? All over the world, stuff is being developed. So having a consultation or having an occupational come in, see the garment, see the actual individual, their functional skills to engage in the task, and maybe some tricks, some collaborative tricks that could really help at least ease caregiver assistance and optimize independence. And this includes just changing the environment for that individual success.
If I could jump in with a pitch too. So this is where
For
Open
sure.
Style Lab really can be an asset to work with companies, because our team is made up of designers, occupational therapists, people with the lived reality of disability, and then we bring in other people with skill sets that are either lacking or to complement. So part of our consulting work is with brands. They can bring their products and they can ideate with our team and with people in our community to do everything that Joseph is saying.
Perfect. So if you have any other questions, just put them in the portal, or I know a lot of our speakers have provided their email addresses if you have any questions following the webinar. And yeah, if we don't have any other questions, I'll hand it back over to Kelly to wrap up.
All right, thanks everyone. All right, we appreciate you joining us today. And we want to let you know and save the date for our next, our final adaptive series, one for the year, is going to be on self-care, and that's November 11th. And yeah, we definitely want to keep the conversation going. So follow us on our socials and tag us at CMD about what you learned today. And yeah, we hope to see you next time. Thanks for your time, everyone.